Welcome to the groundbreaking news program that delves into the heart of Mormonism, your weekly window into the unique intersection of news, history, and culture that resonates with the tapestry of Mormonism. So whether you're tuning in from the heart of Utah or joining us from around the world, your favorite news program starts now, where news meets insight and the stories of our faith unfold.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Mormon Newscast. I'm Rebecca Biblioteka. It is Monday, October 21st. That's right. I always have to have that date check because literally one time, like 9 months ago, I said the wrong date. I think it was the first time we ever did the newscast. I mean, give a girl a break. Anyway, I'm here with the amazing RFM. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much.
And Bill Reel, how are you?
I'm here. That's
He's
what we'll
here.
say.
Is there anything you want to say about that, or just move on? Everybody missed you last week for sure.
I've moved into an apartment. It's been a cluster, you know what, and even tonight I got here about 12 seconds before we started, but I'm here and life is good.
This is how much Bill cares about the Mormon Newscast. 12 seconds to go, and he's still on the air. And RFM and I care because we're trying to run the tech without Bill, which I always have an eye on the comments. Somebody said, I'd love to hear what the chatter is behind the scenes before the show. It was kind of like this. Oh my God, what, do you know how to do it? No, Bill usually does that. It was that. But now we have our professional demeanors on and we're ready to go, aren't we?
Yeah, I did everything last week, just so everybody knows.
He did. He did everything.
It was a bit delayed. It wasn't as smooth.
No. No, we couldn't do it without Bill.
Me, huh? That's saying something.
Yeah. No, and I don't know if y'all noticed, but I had to make the thumbnail for today because Bill is having, internet issues as he moves into his new digs. And so, yeah, next week, I think we'll be all back to normal with, everything Bill usually does for us on the newscast. So, all right, let's pull up the slides and I'll review the top stories and then we'll dive right in. There was a lot to cover. We had to cut out stories on the cutting room floor. There was so much going on. Of course, the number one story, you cannot have missed this. Tank top garments have finally arrived. Woo! Or maybe not so much. We're going to talk about that. A tithing lawsuit doppelganger? Very interesting. New podcast highlights LDS abuse. This is an important one to learn about. BYU law students get some advice. Another temple update time with me. And I can't read my last one because it's under the slides. What did I write?
A fake email scam twice.
That's it. Twice. So we'll just let RFM dive right in. He's got the top story. Take it away with garments.
Thank you. Tank top garments have finally arrived for some, and it's really not finally arrived. It's still in the offing. However, there is news to report. Rejoice, LDS women. These new garments will open up more fashion options. That's the headline in the Salt Lake Tribune in an article written by Peggy Fletcher Stack from October 16th, 2024. So rejoice, you LDS women. Damn it. And here they are, the women's dry stretch top. There's something a little different about that top. Does anything look different about that top to you, Rebecca?
It looks like there's maybe 3/4 of an inch of fabric missing there. Although I will say I've seen a picture of the actual garment and the sleeve is a lot thinner. Like it really is a tank top. This kind of alludes to that, just can't get quite off the shoulder, but the real ones actually are. They're like this.
Really?
So
sort of like a husband beater.
A wife beater. Yes, a husband beater. That's right.
Okay, so this is the women's, that's going to be the new one. This is one of the redesign options labeled open sleeve. That's what they're calling it, open sleeve for garment tops for women and men being tested by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Like, they're really going to need to test this. I think this is one of the designs that needs the least testing of any design I've ever seen. Of course, people are going to say, yes, I want that. In hot climates, this is where it's being tested. In hot climates, such as Uganda, Kenya, South Africa, the Philippines, and some southern U.S. locations. By the way, if you happen to live in one of those southern U.S. locations, let us know because they're not telling us. Here, I'm wondering if it's the southeast or the southwest or both. All right, so here's another picture. Women's dry stretch open sleeve chemise. That's right, chemise? Chemise. Help me out here.
Chemise Shemazel. Haas and Puff Incorporated, I think is
We're going to do it.
Chemis.
Okay, this is from the church online store in Uganda. I didn't know they had an online store in Uganda. I figured all the online stores went to Salt Lake, but there you have it. And there is a light one-piece shift. I can pronounce that one on my own. Looks like a slip, a shift option, and skirt bottom for women who mostly wear dresses, as in Africa. Doug Anderson, church spokesperson, says devout Latter-day Saints cherish the privilege of wearing the chemise, the temple garment. He said this Thursday morning. Some of those members live in hot and humid areas. The governing First Presidency has authorized changes in the garment to bless those members and others who might benefit from the changes. Beyond this, he says, the church does not comment on temple matters considered to be sacred, which I think is his way of saying, I'm not taking any questions and we consider the matter closed. He did not say when the new styles might be more widely available. However, later on that same day, the church posted images of the garments, 4 new styles for women and 2 for men on its online store for U.S. members, stating that they would be available in the 4th quarter of 2025. So that sounds like it's about a year out before these will be available. So before you go running to your Beehive clothing store, you might want to wait a little bit because they're probably not going to have them yet. Earlier this year, one of the faith's high-level male leaders, I think that's Elder Oaks. Elder Oaks is actually shorter than saying one of the faith's high-level male leaders. What he thought as casual, even cavalier, wearing of the religious underclothing by devout members. Why do they want to hide who it is who's saying this? I don't know. We all know it was Elder Oaks. Okay. According to a recent survey, however, some women were donning them when and where they want. And they didn't, it seemed, view that as disobedience or inappropriate. All the same, it was getting tougher to find clothing. This is copied and paste, so I take no responsibility for this. I think it's all the same. It was getting tougher to find clothing, especially for women that completely covered garments. Days after the church's general conference in April, the Utah-based Faith's First Presidency sent a letter to all local and regional male leaders that reiterated the importance of wearing the sacred underwear as a reminder of devout members' covenant relationship with Jesus Christ and Heavenly Father. The letter also explained that one of the temple recommend questions had been revised and another one added. The changes were subtle rather than broad, but there was a clear message. Garments are to be worn as instructed in the temple and not left to members' individual inspiration and interpretation. And yes, this was very, very much front and center at conference and immediately after conference. This whole thing, especially about women wearing the temple, not only night and day, but in ways, but not to monkey with it, in order to change it, in order to make it so you could wear the modern fashions. And here we are 6 months later, and they're changing it so that women can wear modern fashions. This is very confusing to me as a man. Maybe it makes more sense as a woman, but I don't understand why it is. It's like a huge flip-flop in 6 months, it seems like. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Oh, and this is for men. See, this is available on the 4th quarter of 2025. The new dress option is blowing my mind. It looks so wearable, says Laura Brignon, a Latter-day Saint research analyst at Sacramento State University who has assessed current garment cuts and how they work or don't work with popular fashion. The experience, she says, the experience of always wearing shorts under dresses is such a major part of the clothing experience for most endowed women. Once a week on Sundays at least, that I can imagine this having a huge impact on endowed women's relationship with their clothing. Looking forward, she hopes to see more thoughtful, functional designs like this, Brignon writes in an email. So this isn't the end of the modifications as far as she's concerned. She wants to see more coming. She says, wouldn't it be great if my daughter or nieces could one day choose the garment slip most suited to her wedding dress, or go to a professional conference with a shell garment top that neither puts her at risk of overheating with a jacket on or immodest exposure without one. Frankly, these redesigns get us much closer to that future than I thought would happen in my lifetime. Okay, so if we can stop right there And I've raised a few questions. Can you start talking about those? What are your thoughts about it, Rebecca, this change?
I don't know. I find the whole thing extremely triggering. And I find there are more questions than answers, I think. And I've been over on Faithful's social media to see what the faithful think, because I know what I think. And I know what a lot of my post-Mormon friends think.
Is
And
anybody rejoicing?
No,
That's
that's
what the
what's so
headline said,
strange.
rejoice.
Yeah, no, there's more here. I'm going to sum it up right here. There's so much. But this says, let me see if I can find it. I should have had it pulled right up. I apologize. Oh my gosh. Now I'm not going to be able to find it all. Let's
It's
see.
okay. I'll talk about a few other things while you're looking for it.
Yeah, keep talking for 1 second because it's a
Now-
great quote. Just a
I can
minute.
share my 2 cents if you want, RFM.
Yeah,
please,
do it
Bill.
while I find this.
So a while back, maybe a year, 2, 3, whatever it was ago, there was conversation. We had gotten rumors that behind the scenes there was a discussion that had restarted, because this had happened 80 years ago, where they were talking about having the temple only be worn inside the temple.
Or the garment.
Sorry, the garment only worn inside the temple, and then
Right.
people could just wear whatever outside. And then we had heard that conversation had restarted again amongst the top leadership a few years ago. And I think it'd be safe to say that this would at least in some way maybe indicate that actually did happen, because it seems like they're trying to figure out a way to allow people to not be bothered by the garment the way it was previously constituted. One solution to that is to make the garment in the temple only. And another solution to that is to adjust the garment in ways that would run counter to everything we've ever said about what the garment needs to be designed like. It at least seems to me that you don't make these kinds of changes unless something is not going well. In other words, when everything is going great in the church, they're not going to change anything. Growth is going great. Remember the 80s and the 90s when we were told there was going to be umpteen millions and millions of people, hundreds of millions of Mormons at some point, and the math formula there was faulty and it didn't happen. But, Quentin Cook says the church is as strong as it's ever been. I'm just saying, you don't make these kinds of changes if the church is moving along in a way that the leaders are confident in. This change seems to indicate to me that things are not all well in Zion, that the loss of members that most critics and post-Mormons sort of point to, this would sort of substantiate that something's not going well.
I think at a minimum, this is evidence that Jesus is finally lightening up a little bit. What were your thoughts, Rebecca?
I finally found the quote, because as I said, over on Faithful social media, I think people feel kind of weird about it and they can't really understand why. And I think this is a great quote. This person says, the new garment design is an attempt, if it's an attempt to get members who have already stopped wearing them to put them back on, this is a colossal error on their part. Changing the design after years of body shaming only confirms that the entire concept is just an arbitrary and ultimately meaningless rule. And I think that's the sense of it. What? You took that off, but wait, my whole life I had to wear it. And wait, my grandparents had to wear it down to here. And wait, my grandparents had to wear it up to, my great grandparents up to there. It just seems when changes happen this fast, it seems so arbitrary and meaningless that you're left kind of, you should be excited about it maybe, but you're just wondering why and what it means. And I take exception with the slip, right? I don't know if you guys understand what that means. So there's a tank top, garment top connected to a slip, right? And that's,
right. That's the chemise.
Yes, exactly. Then there's just a slip, right? So no longer the bottom part that looked like shorts of garments for women, but the slip. So they made changes, but they did not listen to what women were saying. Women were begging for help with the fabric that were causing all these feminine hygiene issues, right? Infections and rashes and UTIs and all that. The shorts are still there. You still have to wear the garment shorts, right? Causing all those problems. Now, there is another option. It's a skirt, okay? So now what does that mean? Does that mean that you wear other underwear, other panties under that skirt? When I went through the temple, I was told you can't do that. Nothing is between you and the garment. You could possibly wear something on the outside, but not on the inside. I don't know. Back me up in the chat, people of my age, if that's what you were told. So are you now saying it's okay to wear something against your skin underneath the slip, which is the garment? Or somebody mentioned, oh, you just wear nothing, and then that will take care of any kind of, issues with him. No, that creates even more issues. And it also means the only option to women that want to wear this is to wear a dress. So, or a skirt. So do we end up sort of looking like keep sweet, pray and obey eventually? I don't know. I just feel like they really didn't listen to women. And I hope some women pay attention and go, how arbitrary and how meaningless. And what else is kind of arbitrary and meaningless? And could I take some of my bodily autonomy back? Could I be me in charge of my own body, which is not on rent from Kolob? Could I? And so that's why I find it really unsettling, the whole thing, how fast it happened and what it means.
Do you two have any thoughts? Because I'm having trouble putting into words myself as to how strange it is to me that such an emphasis was placed upon this, especially for women, especially for wearing the garment as it is designed and not monkeying with the design of the garment to accommodate fashion, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was 6 months ago. That was in general conference. It was not one speaker. It was two speakers, and one of them being the first counselor in the first presidency, and the other being a counselor in the Relief Society presidency, I think, Sister Annette Dennis. And then 6 months later, boom, they're rolling this thing out.
Membership numbers.
Strange.
It's membership numbers.
And Rebecca?
Membership numbers. I'll say it again. And people joining and not joining because of this restriction. To say that it's to bless the saints in hot and humid areas. You're telling me there are no saints in hot and humid areas in the history of the church? I just saw in the chat, Culch talking about wearing garments in the Philippines. I'm surprised you even survived, Culch, and maybe you didn't. I don't know. There may be some things you're not telling us. But I'm just saying there's always been issues with humidity and problems with wearing garments. But why now? Why choose Africa? Why is it now okay there to make these more accessible, more user-friendly garments? I say membership numbers. That's what I say. I say perhaps people are not willing to convert or join with those restrictive other garments that don't match at all culturally what everybody's wearing. So members
maybe putting the question a different way is that I cannot believe that this redesign happened in the space of 6 months.
It was already in the works, I'm sure.
Yes, it was already in the works. It takes a long time for this church to do anything. It takes a long time to turn the Titanic around. It takes a long time for the Mormon church to do anything like this. It was already in the works at the time that Dallin Oaks is excoriating, especially the women of the church, about not wearing the garment appropriately. I don't know what to make of that.
Yeah. It would at least seem to, one is that this isn't just going to be to the hot, humid areas of the world. Mm-hmm. This is going to be a popular seller. People are going to see this as leeway to do it. So they're going to, and it's going to move across being sold across the entire church, right? I mean, that's going to happen. It just seems like in one fell swoop, shoulder porn is no more. The church essentially said that shoulder porn isn't a thing. We're now in agreement that women should be allowed to wear outfits that show their shoulders, and none of us should give 2 cents worth. And you mentioned the garment checks. There was a thing on Ex-Mormon Reddit that I was reading too about garment checks. I mean, you're no longer going to be able to tell what's a garment and what isn't. There isn't anything special about it. So all the stuff you guys are saying, I think hits it on the head.
Well, and just what you just said, they have decided that now women can show their shoulders. Really, they have decided for us what we can wear, what parts of our bodies can be revealed, how we dressed. Everybody needs to just listen to that. I know it's so common to say it, but if you think about what it really means in the 21st century, it's actually pretty horrifying. And if you remember, I reported on the nursing garment a couple months ago. Now, that was a garment that was for nursing mothers, and it had a crossover feature to nurse more easily. But a lot of women found this, and it was pretty stretchy, and you can kind of pull it down and give you that normal neckline. And in pulling it down, it also kind of pulled the sleeves over. So for a while, I think women it hasn't been like when I first started wearing garments, it was practically like that, right? And so they're already moving that way, but you're right. Now you're not going to be able to tell it all. I don't know what we post-Mormons are going to do to show that we're post-Mormons, because shoulder porn is in.
And these decisions are being made for the women by 15 men.
Yeah,
Old
exactly. Old men. Yeah. And not just that. I read a post today on Reddit. It was actually an article in the Exponent 2. And this woman said that she had not worn her garments during 5 months of being pregnant and post-pregnancy. You know how that is. You're a hot mess. I mean, please don't put anything on my skin, right? And she went to her bishop and mentioned that, confessed that. I have not worn the garment. I was pregnant, and then it was post-pregnancy. And he let her know after the fact, when he took her temple recommend away, that the men had all discussed this and decided that this was not an appropriate way for this woman to clothe herself in this time of her life. And again, you have to, I put up with stuff like that when I was TVM, but on the other side of it, when you listen to what you're saying, oh my God, your body is your own, please. Sorry, soapbox.
Underscoring that this has been a very, very important thing to the church as far as the women not showing their shoulders.
Yeah.
Back in 2011, it was a Christmas issue of the Ensign, and the church reproduced a famous painting by an artist named Carl Bloch. They're an original painting of the resurrection. There's Jesus coming out of the tomb, looking up into the sky. And there on the left, you can see that there are 2 angels, right? These are female angels, and they have shoulders that can be seen. Can you see those on the left, Bill? Rebecca?
Oh, yes.
So that's the original. Now, when the church reproduced this for publication in the Ensign and to be viewed by Mormons, look what they did. On the right side, they put on shoulder caps for the angels so they would be modest enough for Mormon consumption and viewing. This is how important this is to the church and has been. Traditionally, it's not a little thing that they didn't put a lot of emphasis on. They're changing major pieces of art in order to conform to their idea of chastity for women. It's not just there. Here's another one. And this was from the Light the World LDS Christmas campaign. It was probably for the first one, which has been a few years ago now. Not that long ago. On the left, you have the original of The Holy Night by Carlo Maratta, painted in 1655. That's a long time ago. And here you've got some little cherubs looking over the shoulders of the Virgin Mary, who's just has her Jesus baby in her arms, right? So this is Christmas Eve, Christmas night. And you can see a low neckline on Mary. Here on the right is what the church changed it to look like so they could publish it. And you notice we get rid of the little cherubs because, you know, they have these pesky wings on, and we don't believe in angels with wings. And they're little babies, right? We got rid of the infants on thrones part of the King Follett Discourse. So we'll get rid of these little infant cherubs. But more importantly, and relevant to what we're talking about, look at the neckline on Mary. See, in 1655, Mary was wearing this very revealing neckline. And now for the Mormons, they bring it up several inches. So she is being appropriately chaste Mormon style. Once again, this is something very important to Mormons. You can't imagine going through this effort to do this kind of stuff unless it's something that's very important. But by the way, this is all yesterday. Now, all of a sudden, it's fine to show your shoulders. Oh, here's another one. This is a real picture, right? On the left, this picture was sent in to the Ensign before and after. You've got a lady here with a little child. I think she's 7 years old. Yep. On her lap. It's probably in primary or something. And this little girl with a bow in her hair has a nice dress on. But look at those sleeves on the left. Her shoulders are showing. Not really that much, but just a little bit, you know, coming down the side. It's a 7-year-old girl, for goodness sake. But when they published it, they photoshopped in a shoulder cap on the 7-year-old girl's dress so that she would be appropriately modest. This is the kind of stuff the church has done, but this apparently was just yesterday. That's yesterday. Today, it's a new world. And now women are going to be able to show their shoulders. Hopefully the 7-year-old girl can show her shoulders as well when she's out and about, or her mom can dress her in dresses like she actually wore to church, right? Before the church photoshopped it to pretend she wore something else. Any ideas about these three
Do you
images?
remember, you may not know this, but I was raised this way, dressing babies to be garment ready. Babies, toddlers, little girls. I was dressed like that. I was never allowed to wear a sundress with a strap, nothing like that. Never anything without a t-shirt under it. When I was 14, I remember going on a school trip. I played the flute. I was on a bus in the band. We went shopping and I bought a lace top that had a sleeve like this. I knew the wrath of hell was going to come down on me. I knew the gates of hell were going to open up and swallow me. I knew I had done the worst thing, but I can't even describe the feeling when I tried that on back in the hotel room, in the bathroom. And I'm just like, kind of like, oh, there you are. That's kind of you. That's more your personality. I could never wear it at home. I hid it in my closet. But it means something when you're dressed like that your entire life, as if you're going to be ready for garments. It just, I don't know. It takes something from you. It steals something from you, I think. And as you said, to sexualize a child like that, or to even think that Mary has a plunging neckline. No, Mary is holding a new baby who she's about to feed. Only the church would see these things in that way. And it's so disturbing.
Great. Bill, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, the church, by changing images, the church sets itself up as sort of like the morality police, what is the appropriate way that a female body should look? And then now they're self-admitting that, as you said earlier, the perfect word, it's all arbitrary. None of it means anything. The church itself is now saying that doesn't really matter. And we've watched this now for about a decade and a half, 2 decades, where the changes in Mormonism have come what I would say is fast and furious. And if you were a member in the 1980s, the 1990s, maybe even the early 2000s, this Mormonism no longer looks like anything. The great apostasy is gone. Free agency is gone. Garments now can be essentially worn underneath pretty much any outfit. This church is in the middle of becoming something completely different than the 40 and up crowd grew up with.
Rebecca and I were talking before the show about how the men's tank top, and it's like, what man is going to wear that? Are you going to wear it to the gym and you're going to have a tank top over it? Or are you going to wear it under your regular shirt? I personally would not do that. I was talking about Rebecca, excuse me. Because when you put on the garment, right, it's like having a t-shirt on underneath when you're wearing a dress
normal
shirt or some other kind of button-down shirt. Not everybody wears those. I understand that. But if you're doing that, you want to have your undershirt where your armpit is, because then that's the fabric that's taken all the abuse, right? You don't want to have your nice shirt taking all that abuse, which is what's going to happen if you wear the tank top. So I'm just not sure how many people are going to be wearing the tank top. It smacks to me of, if we're going to give this to the women, then we're sure as hell going to give it to the men, whether they want it or not.
Yeah. And it's not tank top enough. It's like a cutoff t-shirt, like the
80s.
Like the 80s. That's what I thought, with a gold chain. I mean, I have to show this meme based on what you said. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's a woman in a hospital bed, right? Look at that right there with a nurse. Okay. So the nurse says, "You've been in a coma for 20 years. And the woman says, "I bet the Mormon church is huge now." And the nurse says, "It isn't. And don't call it that." That speaks to exactly what you said. The changes are like this. There is no way that anybody can keep up with any of this that we're talking about.
So she said, "I bet the Mormon church is really big now."
I bet the Mormon church is really huge now, says the woman who's been in a coma. And the nurse says, "It isn't. And don't call it that."
It's like Rip Van Winkle.
It is like Rip Van Winkle. So, but modesty is a huge issue. I'll tell you this. Oh my gosh, this is so funny. So my mom always wore a dress. She dressed me garment ready like that. When the church magazine started showing families where women were wearing pants, remember maybe like 10 years ago, they started finally having people in pictures where women were wearing slacks, attractive slacks, right? So on the cover, once it finally made it, there's a woman in pants. My mom cut out of a doily a little skirt and she glued it on to the ensign. Yeah, because she didn't want to have a woman in pants, even on the cover of a church magazine, if you can believe that. Yeah, when you're raised like that, you take it to those extremes.
Just being a little bit, trying to be even-handed here. the church has to deal with these kinds of members as well, right?
Yes.
The ones who are resistant to the change. And that's probably why they have to do it so slowly.
Yep.
I still don't understand why in April they're condemning women for changing the pattern of the garment, and then in October they're changing the pattern of the garment. And basically, other than the health reasons that you talked about, which are very important, Rebecca, and still need to be done and hopefully will be, but basically my understanding is, and what I've heard is that generally it is the shoulder that has been one of the main fashion problems that women have had with the garment over the years. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because that's what really sets you apart. Normal women everywhere wear no sleeves. And so to not be able to do that, it just sets you completely apart. Men, the men's garment, it looks like a regular t-shirt and boxer brief. There's not too many things that you're not going to be able to wear, but a woman, absolutely. Or to wear, a shirt like this and then a t-shirt under it. How many of us did that? Ruined a sundress, ruined it. Yeah, exactly. This was a good one. Yeah, it really sets you apart. Which we were told was the point,
Will
right?
Ferrell. Yeah, Will Ferrell, show your shoulders and I'll torture you in hell forever. Mormon God in 2024. Let's see what you've got under those sleeves, girl.
Oh, well. Okay, so are you ready? We'll continue with the article.
Yeah, there's a lot, and I feel like there's going to be more that comes out about this. So
I hope so. The evolution of the garment. We know there's been an evolution of the garment. It talks about it a little bit in this article. This is hardly the first time the church has altered its sacred clothing. The faith surveys Latter-day Saints from time to time about garments. So fabrics and designs have evolved through the years, and they may change yet again. Of course they will. After all, the First Presidency views the symbolism of the garment as more important than the style, according to Saints Volume 3, part of the church's official history. The existing garment pattern, according to this book, the existing garment pattern, which stretched to the ankles and wrists and had string ties and a collar, was ill-suited for the types of clothing worn in the 1920s, the book explains. So, top church leaders instructed that a shortened and simplified garment be made available. And here's garments over the years. 1879, 1979, that's where they went to two-piece. 2024, that's now 2079, question mark. And it's a bit faded, but it looks more like a bikini, doesn't it?
Yep. No reason you can't do that, or then move to tattoos or some kind of iron-on.
And here we have a letter, and I was sent a copy of this letter by text message by my dear friend Martine Smith. It's from a committee of apostles, 4 apostles on a committee making recommendations to the church, the other leaders, regarding garments. And this is from 1936. It's dated April of 1936. And this committee of 4 people, by the way, the 4 people are George F. Richards, Joseph Fielding Smith, Stephen L. Richards, and Melvin J. Ballard. That's the 4 people on the committee. So they have this letter. They have a variety of different recommendations they're making. Number 1 is that big paragraph at the top, but it's paragraph 2 here, the big paragraph at the bottom, that concerns us because this was discussed in 1936, and it appears to have missed being implemented by the fact that only 3 of the people of the committee voted for it, and 1 did not vote for it. Of course, it doesn't mean it would have been implemented at the time, because all the apostles would have had to have voted for it, but still. Here it is, number 2. We recommend that we authorize the wearing of garments without sleeves. This is 1936. Without sleeves, which conform in all other respects to the pattern at present agreed upon, provided, however, that this modification, if adopted, shall not be construed to permit the wearing of mere shoulder straps. It is our thought that that portion of the garment covering the shoulders should be of the same material as the body of the garment, as illustrated by the sample herewith submitted. We don't have that sample. We make this recommendation somewhat reluctantly and with deference, only because we have convinced ourselves that it will tend to bring about more respect for instructions given for the wearing of the garment on the part of many members of the church. And in the second place, because we are sure that it will obviate undesirable exposure of the garment, which now so frequently occurs through the wearing of present-day patterns of clothing in 1936. We feel sure that such a modification will greatly please many good women throughout the church, and we have not been able to see that we are yielding any vital thing in this slight change. Very short sleeves are now permitted, but such short sleeves are just enough to carry an undesirable display of the garment with modern styles of clothing. 3 members of the committee concur in this recommendation. 1 does not assent to it.
Any guesses which one was the one that did not assent?
Well, it's always Joseph F. Smith. He's like the one everybody goes to.
He's the one who turned down the idea of wearing the garment only in the temple, and they thought the change was going to happen. Devery Anderson, in his book, reported that several wives of the apostles went out and bought new underwear, thinking they would be allowed to wear it, only to have either.
Yep, the wives are always the last to know.
Yes, they thought they would be able to wear it. Whoever was talking to his wife was talking out of school, but he did it anyway. She went out and got some nice secular women's clothing she was all excited about, only to find out that it didn't go through. It didn't pass. It wasn't adopted. But this could have been 90 years ago. It's 88 years ago, I think, 1936. And it was on the table then. 3 were voting for it. And, well, this is how long it takes things to happen in the LDS Church. It can take almost a century. Sometimes it can take 126 years, from 1852 to 1978, for things to change in the LDS Church. So there is that letter. Now, let me see if there's anything else going on here. No, it's up to Rebecca next. I hand it back to you.
You know what's interesting, though, about the letter, I thought? They are willing to make changes to accommodate modern fashions. They are going to modify the garment because fashions were like this. People were wearing them with their garment hanging out. That's what they're talking about. So what did they say? Let's change the garment to fit the fashion. When did that flip-flop? When was it the other way around? All this stuff makes me really sad. 100 years ago, it could have all changed, could have been different. It could have been something else. So
I could have been a contender.
I was getting there. I could have been a garment contender. So anyway, I hope everybody lets us know what they think in the comments, because it's a loaded issue when they make a change like that. There's celebration, but and you know what I think? I think it's a person of a certain age, like my age, who goes, you know what? I missed it. I missed all those years of being a young person and wearing those fashions. I didn't get to do it, So in a sense, I'm jealous of all the mommy bloggers and everybody that gets to walk around like this in the church. And we didn't get to do it. We didn't. Anyway.
That's because you were the more righteous generation.
We were I was told I was the chosen generation in my patriarchal.
You were the generation that was going to usher in the second coming of Jesus.
Hey, I'm not dead yet. There's still time. It could happen. So after the Olympics, right? 1930 or 2034.
That's what Wendy Nelson keeps telling her husband.
Is Rebecca wearing the garment or not? You will never know now.
You can't even know. Well,
your style now will accommodate the garment.
This is it exactly. And to be honest, I mean, even winter, summer, spring, fall, I wear porn shoulders so that nobody has any question about what my point of view is and who I am. Because I was accused when I first started podcasting of being too friendly and smiley, and people thought I was a TBM. And then I started saying horrible things with a smile. And so I thought, well, I don't want people to misunderstand me, so I will always wear this. Now it doesn't matter. I don't know what I'm going to do now.
Now what are you going to do?
That's what I'm going to say. I don't know.
You're not a member of the church.
Suggestions in the chat. I have no idea what I should wear. Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. Let's move to our next story. This is a big story. And like I said, I think there might be more on it to come out. Okay. So this next story has to do with the BYU Law School, the J. Reuben Clark Law School, and a guest lecturer who came and presented something to the students there. And I'm calling this kind of like a lawsuit, head versus heart. So on the left, you have head. That's the scarecrow, your brain, right? And on the right, you have heart. That's the Tin Man. If you don't know what I'm talking about, this is from The Wizard of Oz. I hope you do know. Anyway, so this was a post from a third-year law student who I've been in contact with and got permission to share this. And he was there at this lecture, and it just struck him in such a way that he had to make a post about it. So his post is called "Church is Terrified of Losing Its Young Lawyers." I bet they are. So this third-year law student says, today, former attorney and General 70 Wilford Anderson, who I believe is emeritus at this point, visited BYU Law School to give a guest lecture titled "The Nuance of Knowing." Very interesting title. The main takeaway was that at law school, you learn great critical thinking skills, and that's great for your career and all, but please do not use these with church topics. He distinguished two types of knowledge: head knowledge and heart knowledge. You can see where he's going here. There is a risk, he argued, that intelligent people are too quick to lean on their own understanding. They sometimes gasp, even use their intellectual abilities to pick apart heart knowledge, something that you know in your heart, right? Or in other words, they apply logic and evidence to spiritual topics. He then spent the last 10 minutes going on about how important attorneys are to the work of the church to fight for religious liberty issues and so on. He was also sure to mock those who got worked up over church history and social issues. So right there, it's head over heart. Oh, I think it's so interesting. He goes on to say the entire talk obviously had strong undertones of the church's fear of the millennials and Gen Z leaving the church. They need smart, accomplished professionals to be leaders in the church. And if that demographic starts leaving in significant numbers, it's in hot water. This is doubly true of lawyers. If the next generation of LDS attorneys apostatize, who in the world is going to run the church? And then he said this cute thing: thanks for reading. I should be working on an assignment, but my morbid curiosity made me throw away an hour of my life. And so I had to share. So this post was intriguing. I've seen other people talk about it. What do you guys think of this idea of head knowledge and heart knowledge? And your heart knowledge should always win out.
I think that what he's trying to do, he's trying to make a difference without a distinction, is what he's doing, to use a legal phrase to talk about his legal argument, which is really not a good legal argument. It's obvious what he's trying to do, right? What he's trying to do is saying, use your head and your critical thinking skills for the law, but leave the church out of it. Do not use your head. Do not use the critical thinking skills that you are learning to become a lawyer on your religion. Otherwise, there's going to be hell to pay. We don't want that to happen, because you're going to end up leaving the church over it. At least that's their fear. And it's probably based on the fact that it's been happening an awful lot. The idea here is that critical thinking should be able to be used across the board, not selectively. What it is, I think, is a tacit admission that using your head on the LDS church is going to lead to a lack of faith.
He said in another way, he seems to be saying there are compelling reasons to doubt.
Yes. And we don't want you stumbling on those.
That's right. Follow your heart, follow your dreams. That's it. So this particular general authority, then somebody emailed me a whole big thing about this gentleman when he was their general authority, was their stake president, and mentioned that he had been a top contributor to Prop 8, which I thought was interesting. And then right after that was made a general authority. So, there's always a backstory to people. But then I continued talking to this third-year law student, and he gave me a little more perspective about what's happening over there at the law school. And he said that religious education is really ramping up under the new dean, David Moore, who just became the dean last year. He said that under the reign of David Moore, there's an emphasis on attending devotionals. Every Tuesday, there's a devotional at BYU. This is optional. Sounds like the dean is now encouraging the students, you've got to go to the devotional. Also, the dean created a Come Follow Me group within the law school so that they can all study the Come Follow Me curriculum. And he also sends out emails that sort of reminds people of the dress standards, especially reminding the female law students about the appropriate dress for them. So in the perspective of this third-year student that I was talking to, definitely amping up the religious side of a legal education, which I thought was very interesting. And that name may sound familiar to you. The David Moore, about, I don't know, a couple months ago, there was an article in the Tribune. BYU Law School Dean contributed to Project 2025 and then later had his name removed. So that's a little controversial in its own right there, that he did make a contribution to that, and it stood his name on the rolls there while he was the dean, and then he asked to have it removed because he was associated with BYU in that contribution. So anyway, you can read more about that in the Tribune, but it's just kind of interesting to see who these players are. And then, not to be outdone, I just had to add this because I came across this just like half an hour before the show. Somebody else posted that they had been in a BYU religion class, and it was a class about learning the teachings of the prophets. And there was a section on apostasy and rebellion. And in a subheading under that, there was something called inappropriate intellectualism. And after I read this, I feel like the three of us and a lot of people that we know and associate with engage in inappropriate intellectualism. So be forewarned. So this is right out of the what the lecture said. It said, the inappropriate intellectual section of this lecture reads as follows: "To be learned is good, declared Jacob, if they hearken unto the counsel of God." 2 Nephi 9:29. When one ignores the inspired teachings of the prophets simply because those prophets lack academic credential, or because their words fly in the face of the accepted theories and views of the world, that person is in a way rebelling against the wisdom of God and relying on the arm of flesh. When a person criticizes the teachings of prophets by pitting intellect against inspiration, he or she is engaging in inappropriate intellectualism that will ultimately lead to apostasy. If the intellective quest for truth is not guided by the Spirit of the Lord. So I'd never heard that phrase before. I thought that was interesting. Thoughts from either of you just on this? This seems to be this attempt to tamp down intellectualism.
Well, this is just a rephrasing of the old thing that I think Boyd K. Packer may have started it.
Yes.
Whenever they say intellectuals in any church talk, it's always preceded by so-called.
Yes.
So-called intellectuals. Because the only intellectuals that really exist in the Mormon church are those that are slavishly obedient to the priesthood leadership.
Yeah, I think you're right. But then again, it is BYU. It's the Lord's University, so they can do whatever they want. But it is interesting.
And what does the sign say out in front of the Lord's University, Rebecca?
Oh, yeah. What's
the
the
glory
sign?
of God is inappropriate. Is appropriate intellectualism,
yeah, I think
I
that's
guess.
It. Yes.
It's supposed to be intelligence.
Yeah.
It's
And it does say, come here to
slogan.
learn and go forth to earn. I mean, not earn, sorry, to serve, I think.
Yes. It's a total BS slogan, and they should take it down because they don't mean it, and they never did.
No, they never did. Although I feel like in the past, perhaps, I mean, when I was there, it was more, there was more intellectualism, but yeah, definitely tamped down since then. So, all right. So that's the news out of BYU. RFM, I think this is a super interesting story about a doppelganger scenario.
Right. I hear Bill Reel saying something. I think he has something to add.
I didn't hear him, so sorry.
That's okay. I was just going to say that the section there, their words fly in the face of, and then it lists a bunch of things. Also note, those words will fly in the face of future prophets as well. When prophets die, those who come after will disavow and adapt and change what was said before.
Yeah, and I don't think any of those three individuals there in that picture, the first presidency, will ever be accused of intellectualism, inappropriate or otherwise.
Well, there you have it.
Okay.
All right.
I hope that wasn't too harsh. I know that they went to school and they got probably got some good grades, but big deal. That doesn't make you an intellectual.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go ahead. And next, I get to go again.
You're up again.
This is going to be something really, really interesting because I'm not going to go through another tithing lawsuit. Everybody can thank me later. These tithing lawsuits are continuing, but I'm not going to cover it today. What I am going to cover is a hauntingly similar lawsuit going on in Texas. It's in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. There's a big church there. A lot of big churches in Texas called, I think, is it the Lakeway?
Lakewood, Joel Osteen. I've been there. I've met Joel Osteen.
Is it his church?
I don't think it's his church.
I don't think it's his.
No,
I
it's not.
haven't
But
seen him in any of the
I always have
coverage.
to say I've met him, and his hair is incredible. I will say that up close.
Yes. But there is it's a big church, very, very affluent. Lots of people go to it. They ask for tithes, which I think is a little bit more general or generic a term in their church. It's before contributions. I don't know if they're asking for tithes the way the LDS church does, and it's a penny from every dime and a dime from every dollar. But there's a lawsuit going on because apparently promises were made to the congregation about how their tithing would be used, and now they're finding out that the church wasn't using their tithing the way they promised. Does that sound at all familiar?
I know I've heard it somewhere, but I can't quite place it. Yeah.
So here's what I want to do before I roll the tape on. This is from a local news agency down there in Dallas. And what I wonder is if there is a faithful member of the LDS church who does not have a problem with the tithing lawsuits that are going on against the LDS church, if they would have a problem, however, with the leadership of a Baptist or evangelical or fundamentalist church. I don't know exactly which one the Lakewood Church is, but with their leaders, with their pastors fleecing their flock and using the money they got in ways that they promised they wouldn't use it, as opposed to the same thing being done by the Mormon leaders. Let's see. Let me go here. And what I want to do is let me take this off the screen. Let me put this up on the screen. And now let's see if I can play this and if you can hear it.
Well, Gateway Church is now facing another lawsuit. Some members claim the church failed to give millions of dollars to global charities that the money was promised for. All of it coming on the heels of its lead pastor and founder, I should say, resigning this summer. Our Amelia Magavro walking us through the new accusations tonight.
In a class action lawsuit filed Friday, 4 church members accused Gateway of misappropriating millions of dollars in donations known as a tithe.
So when you talk about giving money to the bride of Christ, which is the church, you expect it to be handled biblically based.
Valentina Hansen is a former member who claims she's been banned from the church for speaking out. She says tithes can actually total thousands of dollars per family.
So on the low end, I will say probably $5,000 in a year. To the high end, probably 6 figures being given to the church.
And now we give 15% to missions, and then 15% of that goes to Jewish ministry. But we've realized it's sometimes even more than that.
At a conference last year, former lead pastor Robert Morris said 15% of the church's yearly revenue goes to ministries across the world. The lawsuit says a CPA oversaw Gateway Global Ministries. That CPA claims the church's revenue totaled more than $100 million, but he only saw more than $3 million given to global missions.
Where has the money really gone? Did it go to any cause?
The 4 church members are now wanting their money back, but say the church will not offer them a refund, despite promises made by Morris.
If you are not fully satisfied at the end of that year, I'll give you your money back.
Our clients do not want to sue their church, but they deserve answers, and we're going to have to get subpoena power to get those answers.
Gateway Church did send us a statement that reads in part, "These are serious allegations. Some of these concerns were brought to us recently, and we are actively investigating them. Funds donated to our church are sacred, and it is important that we hold ourselves to the highest biblical standards of ethics and integrity." This is now the second lawsuit filed against Gateway Church this year, and also follows a string of resignations from church leadership. In South Lake, Amelia Magavro, CBS News, Texas.
Okay, so there you go. It's the Gateway Church in South Lake, Texas. But you know that lady in the black dress who was talking, who can't go back to the church anymore? Oh, excuse me for just a second. Can you? Sorry, that's going on to a different news story. Okay. But that lady in the black dress who has made such a ruckus that she can't even attend there anymore. Yeah, she's like their version of Nemo. No, actually, or their version of Rebecca Biblioteca. I bet that was a great laugh. I wish I could have heard it, Rebecca.
Damn it. Ha ha ha. I'll do it again. It's
Perfect.
just so uncanny, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it makes me realize why all the churches sign all these amicus briefs together, right? That protect their right to just have money given to them without any accountability.
Yep.
And I just wonder on the other side of it, could all the rest of us that gave money to churches expecting accountability, is there something we could band together on, across religious lines? Because word for word, she was saying what a lot of the people involved in the LDS tithing lawsuit said. And the pastor was saying the same thing, except for I'll give it all back. Boy, somebody in the chat said, I wish Hinckley would have said that or something. But, the sentiment is, you can trust us. You can trust us.
This was a great news story. It covered it really well. It was about 2 weeks old, but there's a more recent news story that I did not play for time constraints, where now the church is saying we can't give any money back to fulfill the promise made by the former lead pastor. He's the former lead. He's gone now, I think. We cannot do that because that would be against the law if we gave your money back. That's going to be their argument, apparently. It's against the law for us to do the right thing.
I wonder what they're basing that on. Don't tell
It's
them
something.
that.
I can't remember. It's some ridiculous
Don't give the
notion.
church
I don't
any
think it's going to go
ideas.
very far.
Oh, my gosh.
And then, Rebecca, did you have any comments that
Yeah,
you want
I
to make
can't
about the
tell.
bill? If you heard about
Bill
that.
is- Nope, he's like,
Nope.
nope.
Okay.
I saw it. It looks a lot like somewhere else, as you guys pointed out, but no, I don't have anything to add to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're a Mormon who thinks it's okay for the church to do what they're doing with tithing, how would you distinguish that from what's going on in this Gateway Church in Texas?
Well, you would say that in Gateway, that's just a false church. Of course, the LDS tithing has been given to the true church. So that's the difference.
Yes, so the true
And
church
my
is
heart tells
okay.
me. Yes,
It's okay to lie
It's
about
okay.
how you're going to use your money,
That's
your
right. Yep.
donations, right?
No, that's a great story. I think we need to follow it and see what else happens because that's fascinating. I wonder if they've heard of the LDS church and the LDS church tithing lawsuits. I just feel that all these things that are happening that are similar, people could learn from each other, like cities and temples and lawsuits. And
I think that there is actually a difference that I should mention, which is that there in the Texas church, the Gateway Church, it appears that there is money missing.
oh, okay.
Because he had said 15%, they had like $100 million. I think he said 15% is going to go to this ministry over here. And so that would be $15 million, but only $3 million went there. So where the heck is the other 12 million?
And
I
that
think it's
makes
a question that they have.
That makes sense. And somebody in the chat said, God needs a new jet. And that's probably exactly what it is. So.
Yes. Well, we've got one more story. I think it's one more. Maybe
we have
it's
two
but
little
it's
short
few.
ones. Yeah, two little short
Okay.
ones really quick as we finish up here. So we kind of took the pressure off Bill this week and kind of each doubled up on some things until he can get his internet and his studio all put together. So this is really interesting. I hope that you guys have heard of this. This is a brand new podcast out of New Zealand. It's called Heaven's Helpline. And in this particular article by the person who put the podcast together, Murray Jones, says the secret lives of Mormon bishops, lawyers, and abusers. This is a 6-part podcast, and I'm getting texts all over the place from people that have listened to this. Our good friend Martine said part of it almost brought her to tears, or did. Just these stories are incredible. And it's all about, cover up and the helpline. Here, I'll read a little bit from the article, which I thought was really good. So this is the reporter. He might look familiar because he did a lot with church finance before. And this is kind of how he got involved in looking further, because one kind of leads to the other. So it says a podcast investigation into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints reveals how credible reports of child sexual abuse and domestic violence vanish into the system of church leaders, lawyers, and secret courts. For journalist Murray Jones, there he is right there, it all began with some simple questions about how the LDS Church got so rich and why it keeps on building vast and expensive temples. He says, you may know them as earnest young men on bikes wearing crisp white shirts and going door to door as missionaries in the suburbs. Or maybe you're familiar with the hit musical, The Book of Mormon, or the TV and social media sensation, The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. In New Zealand, because this is where this podcast comes out of, the general impression of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, commonly known as the Mormon Church, is slightly more low-key than these irreverent depictions in pop culture. They are polite, family-focused, and rather good at basketball. They're stringent about premarital sex and drinking alcohol or coffee. Sure, there was polygamy back in the early days of the church, but they don't believe in that anymore. When I, the reporter, first began looking into the Mormon Church, it was for an investigative project on one of the richest registered charities in the country. And he did it for the paper that he was working for. And the richest registered charity. That's crazy. And then he came to this conclusion. Then he says, these early questions about tithes, tax exemptions, and temples developed into a 2-year investigation and a 6-part podcast into how the LDS built a system that protects the church's wealth and reputation and helps shield sexual predators from the law. And then thank you for moving that. And then he came back to this. It left me asking, how far has the Mormon church gone to cover up this abuse? And I think I do have a video if RFM can figure out how to play that. I can't. So, but again, this is out of New Zealand. It's found anywhere you can find a podcast. It's 6 parts. And I'm telling you, the people that have been listening to it are riveted. It's really, really well done, really well researched.
Let's see what we can do about putting that up here. See,
Yeah.
nowhere near as good as you, Bill.
No, Bill does it seamlessly. Yep.
And here we go. Let's see if we can hear it.
There we go.
2 years ago, I began looking into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons. It started with an interest in their vast wealth, luxurious beachside apartments and opulent temples, which were built from tithing some of the poorest communities in New Zealand.
If Jesus had $100 billion, what would he spend it on?
But as I spoke to more and more members of the church,
I was just a full-on soldier for the church.
I started hearing a very different kind of story.
They kept insisting that I needed to forgive him.
I did what I was supposed to do. I told my bishop.
A church wouldn't deliberately put a child in harm's way.
I'd just tell the helpline and they can make it all go away.
I'm Murray Jones, investigative reporter for the New Zealand Herald and host of Heaven's Helpline. Out now on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts.
Is this the LDS Church Abuse Helpline?
Who am I speaking to?
I know. So yeah, and it was asked again in the chat, where can I access this? And again, like he said, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, wherever you find your podcasts, you can listen to this. This is a 6-part series. And following the money led him to, what is the money used for? Quite often to cover up, and that's abuse and things like that. Had you heard of this podcast, RFM, at all? Or
no, I had not.
You hadn't. Yeah, I'm glad that we're going to make a little more visible, because obviously there's a lot of interest. It's now actually reached #1 podcast in New Zealand, so it has universal appeal. But of course, and I reached out to Murray today. I go, hey, because I swear that I had talked to him before when we were talking about finances, but maybe I talked to so many different people. But I told him there's such an interest in the post-Mormon community about this. And if we can go to my next slide, I just picked this up the other day. This is sad, but true. Oops, there we go. Look at that. LDS church building was vandalized. And one of the things they wrote on it was sex abuse. And so it takes a lot of anger. It takes a lot of awareness of this growing problem or the transparency of the problem to do something like that. But it's definitely an issue that this podcast, I hope everybody will listen. I hope everybody will spread the word about this podcast, because it's so well done. And again, shine a spotlight. We keep using that phrase, but that's what it is. So any more thoughts on that?
I just want to add that our podcast is in no way condoning this type of mischief, malicious mischief.
Yes.
On property of the church or anybody else.
No, I forgot to say that, but you're right. No, I show this just as a very, very sad commentary, because this should not happen either. And it's, this is very unfortunate.
But that's where it's coming from.
And that's where it's coming from, that place of just hopelessness and anger at this systemic kind of a thing. But yes, we would never want anyone to do anything like that at all on the newscast. Okay. I think I have one more section, and that's, as I said, King Tut, the temple update time. And this is really interesting, because this little tidbit came to me from, our friend, Ganesh, right? We all know Ganesh. He is in Dubai right now, visiting family and friends. And we started talking about the temple. Do you guys remember that a temple was announced in Dubai? Do you remember that at all?
I did
You know,
not
it was
until you reminded me.
so long ago. It was actually announced during COVID in 2020. Isn't that funny? A really long time ago. And of course, crickets. We haven't really heard anything about this since then. And some information about it. It's supposed to be built in District 2020, which was supposed to have a giant expo toward the end of 2020. Well, we all know what happened there, right? That didn't happen because COVID shut everything down. And so far, the temple has not been built either. This is a picture that Ganesh sent me. You can see off in the distance, that is the area where it's supposed to be built. And here is a map of where it's going to be. And so where is it? That's the question. Well, there's a couple different theories on this, what the members are talking about. One, of course, is just, COVID, shut it down. They're still trying to ramp up. They're still trying to build. It was announced almost 5 years ago in 2020. So that's one thought. Maybe COVID just kind of blocked it.
Haven't they built other temples in that time period?
Well, yes, they have. Yes, they have. So that's what makes me think that there's something else going on. And the members that seem to be in the know seem to have heard that the church has put plans forward for their temple in Dubai, but they have been told it doesn't fit in. It's not high enough. It's not bright enough. It's not ornate. I know the irony of these words coming out of my mouth are just stunning me right now. It doesn't fit in. It's not it's not high. It's not bright. It's not ornate. It's too pedestrian. I guess I could say that 1950s hotel lobby architecture maybe doesn't fit in there. And so that's what's holding it up, is that they need a new design, something that will fit in this incredible area with these incredible buildings, that it's a tourist destination and they want it to look amazing. So of course I went to AI and I said, LDS Temple in Dubai in the style of the other buildings there. I think these are awesome. I think these are amazing. I might want my recommend back to go to some of these. Look at these interiors I designed. I know I really am only on the newscast because I have a place to put the AI that I make. That's the only reason.
Don't forget all the great research you do.
Okay, there is that, but still, it's all about the AI. So anyway, interesting anecdotal story. The members are saying, that they haven't come up with a design that's going to fit in with the community yet, because it has to be higher, brighter, more ornate. So that to me, that's just incredibly ironic. What do you guys think about that?
I do think that's amazing. And they're going to have to, if they really want to build a temple in Dubai, they're going to have to not just do one of their cookie cutter temples, apparently,
Right.
do something more like what they did in Rome.
Yes. Or
Need to add
Milan.
some minarets.
Milan is coming. Yep. I think they will. So
You need to have the people up there doing the call to, not the call to prayer, but the call to the endowment, the call to washings and anointings.
call to the endowment. Oh my gosh. Sorry, that's really funny. Bill, any thoughts on an ornate temple? He might be frozen or
I think he
pondering
is.
deep in thought. I can't. It's hard to tell. Sometimes I feel like I'm frozen.
No, you're not
anyway,
frozen, but you're just
it's-
muted.
Am I? No, I'm
No,
not.
I was talking to Bill. I'm sorry.
Okay, good. Oh my gosh. We're losing it here at the Mormon Newscast. Okay. I
Okay.
have one more story.
Yes.
That
Oh, this is a
literally,
great one. I love
as
this
I was
story.
commuting home from work, I'm like, okay, I had caught this a couple days ago and I'm like, well, that's kind of funny. But the rest of the story that came out today is probably one of the more hilarious things that I've ever heard. Okay. So this has to do with Sydney, Australia, right? So Sunday, in a certain stake there, the, how do you say it? Montdale stake. All the residents of the stake wake up and there's this email and it's from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's from their stake president. So of course you're going to read this email. It's coming out on Sunday morning and it says Sydney, Australia, Mondale stake pilot program informed consent. Well, that sounds interesting. Everybody wants to be part of a pilot program, right?
Informed consent? Really?
Yeah, that's what it said. Informed consent. I know that should be your first tip off. There might be
That's the
something
first
a
red
little
flag. This is not
askew,
really
yeah.
from the
But
church.
nobody caught it. Okay, so it says, dear brothers and sisters, I have some wonderful news. Your stake has been chosen to try a new approach to learning about the gospel. As you know, our leaders are trying to be more transparent with some of the messiness in our history. No doubt you have all started to notice this with the release of the gospel topic essays 10 years ago, the videos of President Nelson showing us how Joseph translated the Book of Mormon with his face in a white stovepipe hat and seer stone. The pilot program will include two different objectives. The first is that our beloved missionaries will ensure that all the converts are fully informed before they commit to baptism, and there is no more milk before meat. The second is for all the members to go through a short lesson to make sure that they are also fully informed. So the letter goes on for another 5 pages, very thorough. Issues with church history, not getting your own planet, anachronisms, changes to the Book of Mormon, will you be a God, links and everything. And this is from the stake, a pilot program where the members can actually learn and are encouraged to learn about the history. Face it full on, right? Okay, so that's Sunday. The members are reading this going, well, this is kind of interesting. What happens Monday morning? Oh my goodness, very quickly. Another letter from the Church of Jesus Christ, right? It says, Dear Mortdale Stake family, it has been brought to my attention that a number of our members in the stake have received a deceptive email disguised as an official church program.
Where was Jonathan Streeter when this happened?
This is what I'm saying. We've seen this play over and over, but it has a twist at the end. The subject of the email states Sydney, Australia, Mortdale Stake Pilot Program. At this stage, it's unclear as to how many members have received this email. Please note that the email is not from the church, so please disregard and delete it, right? They're desperately trying to do some damage control here. If you have any questions or concerns, please contact a member of the Mortdale Stake. So
disregard it and delete it.
Delete
it. It off, take it out in the backyard and burn it.
Nope, don't look at it, don't read it, don't do anything. So as we're following along, this person posting about this on social media, we're like, oh, well, that's funny. The person sent the email and the stake shut it down. But then probably one of the more brilliant moves that I have ever seen, I have to tip my hat to the poster here. The person who sent the original email pretending that there's a pilot program sent this very same email, but a big blue update. Please note, a local leader mistakenly interpreted this email as a scam. This is a genuine request for all members of the Sydney, Australia Mortdale Stake to become better informed about our history. Boom. Can you believe that? And he even said a local leader, right? No names. So basically, if you understand what I'm saying, is the original poster then posted again and said, oh, no, it's real. I don't know what's going to happen next. What would you do if you were in the stake there? Because now nobody knows what's happening.
I would, I think the next Sunday, I would make sure that there was everybody met together, all the men and all the women, they all meet in the chapel, and the real stake leaders get up there in pure AI glory, and they tell them face to face that this is not from them. Of course, it's just hysterical to me because it puts the church in the position of saying, we don't want the truth to be told to the members about us. And here's somebody telling the truth about us. Now, the only thing that's not true about it, I haven't read the whole thing, but from what you said, it sounds pretty legitimate. The issues they're raising, we've gone over these.
Yeah, and mostly all from the church website. I mean, that's what's ironic is that everyone can use their own information.
No, they've got a problem. This is the problem the church has, is trying to keep all the information hidden in the internet age.
Yeah. I just thought it was brilliant. Bill, any thoughts on that?
If my internet is good at the moment, what an upmanship move on the back end to go like, well, actually, it's the other guy who doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm the one.
That's what I mean.
It's the Spider-Man, right? Pointing at each other.
This is Spider-Man. Somebody I saw you put it up said legend. And that's it. Exactly. This person is just brilliant. I mean, I'm still laughing at this. So we'll have to see what happens next, because honestly, now there has to be some kind of rebuttal to that. I mean, I feel sorry for these stake members. They're just like, wait, what is what? Up is down. What is real? And then maybe they'll just go, you know what? I'm going to read the document. What is it? I don't know. We'll see. We'll keep you informed though, for sure.
Yeah, nothing makes a person want to read a document more than somebody in authority saying, don't read that document.
Yep. That's exactly right. It's kind of like when you're a youth and you go to a fireside on morality and they say, no necking and petting. And the next thing you do is you're like, what's that? Do you know what that is? I don't know. Everybody's talking about it, right? Whatever they tell you not to do or not to learn, you got to figure out what that's all about. So
I know I was a lot closer in age to the generation that knew what the hell that meant, the necking and the petting. But even in the late 70s, we're all looking at each other and saying, what does that mean?
I don't know what they still use that.
Is that like kissing on the neck? Is that necking? And what is the petting thing? Is that like stroking your hair?
Yeah. Or is it your cat? I don't know. No, I actually saw that question posed on Faithful social media about a month ago. So people are still asking, meaning people are still using it. So I don't know how we went to that topic. Oh, that's right. I segued it, but I think we're done. I think we've covered pretty much the news of the day. Any other final thoughts?
No, I think this has been a wonderful show. Glad to have been a part of it. Bill is down there. He's got a wry smile on his face, but he's looking good. We're glad he's here.
He is.
And Rebecca, what a great show. And I know
really fun.
You're in charge, so you get to close it out.
I do get to close it out. And I need to ask you, number one, will Bill's internet be good enough for you guys to do Mormonism Live and Mormonism After Dark this week? Do you have any announcements to make about that as we close here?
I'll just say this, which is if I'm coming through good enough, I had to borrow my neighbor's internet for today. Tomorrow between 1 and 3, TDS comes out and they will reconnect my internet. My issue was I tried to switch over from my mesh network from their mesh network, and I screwed it up. So by the end of the day tomorrow, I should have 300 megabytes download, 300 megabytes upload, fiber internet, and it should be essentially flawless other than a routine, issue with the internet company once a year or something. But otherwise, we should be good to go, and we'll just wait and see.
Whew. That's good. And do you guys have a topic yet for Wednesday night?
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. It's more about how the church in real time right now is still hiding stuff.
Yeah.
They're still hiding stuff.
Yeah.
I know people say, "Oh yeah, they hid stuff," but that was a long time ago. Now they're being open and transparent. BS. They're still hiding stuff, and we got the goods on them.
Wow. Yeah. So the title is, but wait, there's more. I don't know if we can take any more, honestly.
I thought about like hiding Mormonism in plain sight, but the problem is they don't put it in plain sight. You got to go looking for it.
That would be like Poe's purloined letter, hiding in plain sight. They don't hide it in plain sight. They hide it inside of a vault.
The Granite Mountain Vaults. I'm sure you're right. So, and that of course is always Wednesday, 6:20 p.m. Mountain Time. And then, see, I have your whole spiel memorized. And then Mormonism After Dark is either Friday or Saturday, right? You guys just kind of wake up in the morning and decide. Is that how it works?
I think right now we're doing Fridays at 8 p.m.
That's good.
Friday at 8 o'clock.
Friday.
I hear there's something going on, some disruption in the force going on Tuesday evening. Is that right, Rebecca?
Well, I don't know. It could be our Mormonish episode about the Book of Enoch. I don't know if you guys have been following this, but it seems to be a very exciting topic over on the faithful side as far as something that proves the translation abilities or the inspiration of Joseph Smith. So we have the amazing Mark Lyons on, who wrote a book on this, and we're calling it the Book of Enoch, its influence on the evolving theology of Joseph Smith, because we, of course, have a little bit of a different take on it. So it's fascinating. All these things Enoch, and that is Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. So I think that covers it. I think we've done it. Thank you to all of our listeners and viewers for tuning in. We have an awful lot of fun bringing you the news. And thank you, RFM. Once again, brilliant stories. It was wonderful. And thank you, Bill, for doing what you could do. I know it's been difficult.
Lift where you stand.
But you're here. That's right. And next week, we'll see you with full and vibrant internet, I'm sure. So
I think so.
I hope so. All right, everybody. Thanks again one more time from the Mormon Newscast. We'll see you next Monday, 6 p.m. Thanks, everybody.
Susan Bednar here. That's a wrap for this week's edition of the Mormon Newscast. We appreciate you tuning in and sharing this time with us. Keep the conversation going and stay informed on all things Mormonism. Until next week, wishing you peace and joy. See you next Monday at 6 p.m. on the Mormon Newscast. And remember to never take me too seriously.